Before we begin, if true stories of courage and second chances speak to you, tap subscribe and the bell for echoes of heart. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done at that door on a stormy night? Now, listen. Rain lashed against the Pacific coast, turning the glittering lights of San Francisco's waterfront into streaks of molten gold. Waves slammed the rocks with a fury that rivaled the sky's own thunder. On a night when even the bravest hurried indoors, a small figure had nowhere to go. Grace was only 7, already hardened by hunger and the streets. Barefoot, she splashed through alleys flooded by relentless rain, her thin cotton dress plastered to her trembling body. A worn-out stuffed rabbit, her only memory of a gentler past, was clutched tight to her chest. Lightning illuminated her wide, frightened eyes. She didn't know where she was headed, only that the men chasing her earlier had finally stopped. But the fear remained, propelling her through the storm. Above the bay, the Carter estate rose like a fortress of steel and stone, its tall windows glowing softly behind iron gates. To most, it was untouchable wealth. To Grace, it looked like a chance, maybe her only chance, to escape the cold. She slipped through a gap in the fence, scraping her arm on the wet metal, and ducked into the manicured garden, breath fogging in the chilled air. A low purr of an engine broke the night. A sleek black sedan eased up the driveway, headlights shimmering on the rain-slick stone. Behind the wheel sat Alexander Carter, 45. A real estate mogul whose empire stretched from New York to Tokyo. His name commanded boardrooms, but his life was defined by quiet solitude. Money had given him everything except true connection. Alexander stepped from the car, coat collar raised against the downpour, already thinking of tomorrow's meetings, until a tiny voice pierced the storm. "Sir, can I sleep in your dog's house tonight?" He froze. Slowly he turned and saw her. A soaked little girl no taller than his waist, lips trembling as she clutched her toy. "I'll be quiet," she whispered. "Just until the rain stops." Alexander blinked, disarmed. He didn't even own a dog. Yet in that moment, a lifetime of carefully built walls cracked. "You can't stay out here," he said, steadier than he felt. "What's your name?" "Grace," she murmured. He knelt, meeting eyes far too old with survival. "Grace," he repeated, the name a promise. "Come inside, at least to get warm." Inside, golden light spilled across polished marble. Grace hesitated, dripping rainwater onto the floor. "Don't worry about the mess," Alexander said quietly. He showed her a bathroom she thought belonged in a storybook. Marble from floor to ceiling. A bathtub the size of a small pool. Steam curled from warm water as he placed thick towels nearby. "For you," he said. Grace stared, astonished. Hot water wasn't something freely offered in her world. She stepped in cautiously, a shy smile forming as the warmth wrapped around her. Later, wrapped in an oversized white shirt, she sipped hot cocoa and nibbled cookies at the grand kitchen island. Tears shimmered when she tasted the first sip. "It's too good," she whispered. Alexander said nothing, feeling an unfamiliar ache tighten in his chest. When she asked to sleep on the couch, "I promise I won't make a mess." He shook his head. "You'll sleep in the guest room," he said firmly. Her eyes widened as if he'd offered a palace. Soon she was cocooned in a bed of crisp linens, the stuffed rabbit under her arm. "Thank you, Mr. Alexander," came the small voice in the dark. That night, for the first time in years, the mansion felt alive. Morning brought sunlight across the bay, and a new bond neither fully understood. Alexander took her shopping for clothes in downtown San Francisco. Grace chose only the plainest things until he gently insisted, "You deserve more than enough." But joy turned to fear when she stiffened outside a boutique. 3 rough men leaned against a wall, eyes locked on her. "It's them," she whispered. They followed, cornering them near the curb. The largest man sneered. "She belongs to us." Alexander stepped forward, voice like steel. "You'll leave this child alone." The men laughed and backed off only when he handed them a wad of cash, their threats lingering in the wet air. Days later, while Alexander prepared legal papers for guardianship, Grace was kidnapped outside a clinic during a routine appointment. The call came that night. A demand for $100,000 and instructions to meet at the Oakland docks. Alone, under a flickering warehouse light, Alexander found Grace tied to a chair, cheeks streaked with tears but eyes blazing with defiance. "You can't sell me," she said evenly. "I know who you are." She rattled off their real names, details overheard and remembered. The kidnappers froze as distant sirens wailed. Clara, the social worker who had accompanied Grace, had quietly called the police. In the confusion, the men fled. Alexander rushed to untie her and she clung to him, whispering, "I knew you'd come." 6 weeks later, the Carter estate no longer echoed with emptiness. Laughter replaced silence. Drawings decorated the refrigerator. A soccer ball rolled across the manicured lawn. In a San Francisco courthouse, Grace twirled in a pale blue dress when the judge asked where she wished to live. "With Mr. Alexander, my dad," she said without hesitation. Tears blurred his vision as the adoption was finalized. Papers heavier than any corporate contract now defined the most important deal of his life. Together, they founded Grace's Haven, a network of shelters for children who need more than just a roof, places of dignity and care. One evening, Grace led him to a small wooden structure in the garden, freshly painted white and ringed with flowers. A plaque read, "For every child still searching for a home." "You once asked for a doghouse," Alexander said softly. She smiled. "But you gave me a home." He held her close. "No, Grace. You gave me one. From the night a child stood in the rain asking for a corner of shelter, to the day she proudly called him Dad." This story shows that love's greatest miracles often begin with the smallest acts of compassion. If this touched your heart, subscribe to Echoes of Heart and tap the bell so you never miss a new story.